Williams. My name is Tomer Azarly from Touchpoints. Nice to meet you.
Nice
Thank you for doing this. We've asked everyone, so we're going to ask you as well. What's your favorite memory in the league when you were playing?
You know, I had so many great times, great moments, championship moments, teammates, played with all-stars and Hall of Famers. And I was always close to my teammates. They were an extension of my family. And I think winning a championships is the ultimate goal, obviously, in the league. And doing that with the game's greatest player, Michael Jordan, was wonderful my rookie year. But it was not until my second year that I felt from the beginning of the season to the final moments when we were 15 points down to start the fourth quarter that Phil Jackson had thrown in the towel, proverbial towel, so to speak, and put me out there with some of my other bench buddies and B.J. Armstrong and Stacey King and Bobby Hansen, along with Scottie Pippen, the one starter. And we brought the team back from a 15-point deficit to a 3-point deficit, and they brought Michael Jordan back in. You know, they brought some of the other starters back in, and I stayed on the floor the entire fourth quarter. We went on to win the game and win the championship in Chicago Stadium, and it just hit me that from a bad shoulder, from being undrafted, to having to sneak into the team's facility between practices because they wouldn't let me practice. If I could overcome all those types of things and be on that floor and help my teammates, help the coaching staff that bring us another championship to Chicago, that was the greatest feeling that I had. And I had an epiphany that I could play in this league as long as I wanted to. It didn't matter how I got there, being undrafted and having to sit in my sweats for 5 games in a row. I was there and I had arrived, and I knew that I could do it from then on as long as I wanted.
I see. You play for multiple teams, but you rep the Bulls.
Yeah, I rep the Bulls today. Yeah, because of my book cover, I think that it kind of all works well.
I mean, tell us about your book, Through the Fire.
Yeah, it's a biography. Talk about my childhood growing up in a house full of domestic violence, both physical and verbal abuse, and losing my mother at the hands of my father, murder-suicide, Coach Smith delivering the news to me, and depression and the dark thoughts that come along with that while you're still trying to go out there competing from the highest college basketball levels. And I'm glad the NBA now has taken a better approach to mental health. Teams are supporting, the league is supporting guys that need help. And, back in the 80s, it was a sign of weakness if you were mentally strong. And I was fortunate. I had a coach that didn't think that way and that I could talk to about my struggles. And he became a father figure to me. I wanted to honor Coach Smith and my mother. I got him on the back of my book as well. Because it kept me on the right path. My goal of getting a college education, I was able to do that. My dream of playing in the NBA, even though I wasn't drafted, I had a bad shoulder. Like I said, I'd try out. The path became different, but the goal was the same. And I had people that were in my corner, even when my mother had left me, the early life lessons that she had taught me, to keep pushing, to be resilient. And I wrote the book because I want people to know Scott Williams. I'm not, Dr. J or Michael Jordan or Larry Bird. I'm just a guy that just wanted to be resilient and didn't give up. And if I could do it, whatever it is, my goal was they can achieve their goals and their dreams as well.
Why did you think now is the right time to do this?
30 years, man. I tell you, from the third championship, I think I was trying to get it out. At that time when we didn't have sports during the pandemic in 2020, Jordan's Last Dance had come out. Yeah. And I started doing some podcasts and things like that, reconnected with some of my teammates. I was sharing some of the stuff on social media, and someone said, "Hey, you should write a book." So my dumb ass thought, "Oh yeah, I'll write a book in a couple months." Well, 2.5 years later, it finally I was able to push through it and get it done. But I thought, after I did it, I was real and it's raw. I thought I was just going to put it in a safety deposit box. So much time had passed, and give it to my kids one day. After I had taken a dirt nap, and again, I thought, I'm not trying to save a life, but so many kids in North Carolina University, where I went to school, started taking their lives. 5 of them during the pandemic. And I thought about that, being in that dormitory room, having those same dark thoughts. And if I can affect a life and get somebody to want to go get help, then that means a lot to me to be able to do that. My mama, I was worried about the Twitter trolls. I get real in the book. I write a lot about personal problems I had as a child. And I think about my mother. She raised me some, sissies, and I can handle the Twitter. If she, raised me to be able to handle Twitter trolls coming at me because of things I talk about in the book and the things that I share, and I'm cognizant of being able to do something for somebody that's coming up behind me that might need to read this book, and I hope it finds their hands.
I love it. I look forward to reading it. I want to transition to talk about just what do you think about the league today, the NBA today? We've seen a lot of evolution over time.
Yeah.
What do you think about today's game?
Well, I can appreciate the talent of the players. They do things on the floor that, I wasn't allowed to do. We were big guys. We weren't allowed to dribble the ball more 2 or 3 times at the most. They shoot the ball. We get Phil Jackson would fine Stacey King, myself, and Will Perdue if we shot 3-pointers in the game.
What do you really?
That's true. If we missed, if we made it, there was no fine. Okay. If we missed, we got fined.
Wow.
This stuff was from shooting them. It was silly. We called them silly fines. It was $100.
Okay.
Miss a 3-pointer, no matter what time of the game, it was $100. Now you got 7 guys out there over 7 feet, knocking down threes and shoot 40% from behind the arc. But the game is not the same. They don't play inside out. They sometimes come down, no passes to a teammate, and they just jack it up. And I miss that poetry of 5 guys working together on a possession. Now we fast breaked in Chicago and got out and ran and tried to score before the defense sets up. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the isolation basketball, the the traditional 2-man sets that they get into so much with the pistol action and some of the other stuff that it's tough for me to watch because one I couldn't play that way, but 2, I don't think that guys truly learn how to work as one. 5 guys trying to work as one is what I miss. And listen, I live in Phoenix. I go to the Suns games. I love their playoff run. I love what Denver did in the playoffs. It's some of those games in January, February, and March I have a tough time watching. I used to watch 4 or 5 NBA games a week minimum 20 years ago, and now I might watch 2 a month. During the regular season, I don't, unless it's a real marquee matchup. I don't really tune in like I used to.
We were talking to Bob earlier, and he was mentioning how it went from a lot of ball movement to more of off-ball screens or on-ball screens to get a switch on the weakest player with your best player on the ball and just attack that mismatch. Were mismatches not that big of a priority to attack back in the day?
No, we always looked for trying to gain advantage where we could, 100%. But I think what we see now in the NBA is the old guys that maybe a little crusty go, back in our day, the game was played better. We don't see it every possession down the floor. There was ways to gain advantage. The big guy had more of a role. I think they shoot too many 3-pointers, and I just don't think that leads to a pretty game. I've watched teams shoot 33s and a half, and I go, that's a game I'm unfamiliar with. There's nothing about that. I want to watch guys shoot free throws, threes, and dunks. That's not something I can get behind. I love the mid-range game. I love the back to the basket game in the post. It's not something I enjoy.
Interesting. Because nowadays they look at 3s over 2s. You make 5 threes, 15 points. You make 5 2s, 10 points, efficiency-wise and all that. So.
Sure, I can do the math. I understand the analytics behind it, why you do it. You don't need to shoot 60% from the field if you can knock in 40% of your threes. I totally get that. I just said it doesn't make it for a better game, in my opinion. I almost wish, and I've been way out in front of some of the things that I've been saying about flopping 20 years ago, which I'm glad that they're putting into the game now. But threes is another one that I wish they would do away with. Not the 3-point shot. I wish that they would put a cap on the number of, if you're going to be like, this guy's out of his mind, the cap on the number of threes that they can shoot up until the fourth quarter. So then the team is behind at that point. Sure, you're down 20. You need to be able to try to get up quickly. But I don't like watching teams shoot 8. Well, I think I've seen teams shoot somewhere between 15 to 18 threes and a quarter. And I just go, that's not good basketball to me. I wish they would cap the number of threes that you can shoot through quarters 1 through 3.
Interesting. Who's a player you think is still like dominant in the mid range or like really good in the mid range nowadays? There's a couple of them.
There's several good ones, and I have the opportunity to watch a couple during the playoffs in Phoenix. I think that Devin Booker is a great mid-range three-point shot. Kevin Durant is also a very good mid-range shooter as well. So I'm not going to try to get on a list of who my favorite guys are, but those 2 guys that I watch a lot because I'm right there in Phoenix. I like the way Kevin Durant's my favorite player. Sorry, LeBron. One of my old teammates who I still enjoy watching play, but Kevin Durant's probably my favorite player. He mixes up the mid-range game, going attacking the basket with three-point shot more often the way we did back in the 90s.
Yeah, mixing it up. Who's a guy that you look at in today's game you could say compares to your game?
Oh shit! I won't put that on somebody. They're all better. They're all better than I was. They called me Tank, right? I move people around in small spaces, but they're all so talented athletically, right? They're faster, they're more athletic than I ever was, and from that standpoint, I really enjoy watching guys play. I got to watch Denver a lot this year when they play in the Suns in the playoffs, and they got a number of players on their team that move well with and without the basketball, and I like that team concept that they play with. Their superstar is very unselfish. He likes giving credit to his teammates, and that's very refreshing.
Do you think it's fair to compare eras over time?
No, probably not. Because I know sometimes today's area gets, this guy averages more points and he shoots more threes and he scores more points than the way that we played in the 90s. We played a slower game. Even D'Antoni's Phoenix Suns teams, they would probably be at the very bottom of the speed at which the teams play today. If you notice the number of shots that they take, so it changes, and it changes very quickly. And I'm hoping that at some point in time it will start to revert back to kind of where it was in either the late 90s or early 2000s. Not to take anything away from the players, but like I say, I don't tune into as many games because I don't recognize as many aspects of the game from when I played.
The biggest thing in today's NBA right now is Victor Wembanyama, the big man out of France.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to see him at all? He highlights the game the other night. What do you think about him?
I missed his game on Friday. I was actually at a baseball game. I saw his first shot. He missed that, but I didn't get to see any of the game. I didn't see the statistics. I didn't get to check to see how he did. But yes, I am very interested to see guys seeing the highlight tapes, and even Scott Williams had a highlight tape, so I'm not going to judge that. But I see him do things that I'm not used to seeing. The guy Jokic in Denver at his height and size, and the way he moves on the floor is mind-boggling to me as well. So if this kid lives up to half the hype, he will have been a major success.
And last one for you. The in-season tournament was just announced for the NBA. Oh, in-season tournament in mid-November.
I just found out about that. I'm not sure what that's all about. I got to do more of a dive into that.
Yeah, they're going to give them it's going to be part of the regular season, but then they're going to play the semifinal and the final here in Vegas for a cup, a little second trophy, I guess you could say. The winner gets $500,000 if they win. Yada, yada. I'm curious what you think about a potential in-season tournament and how that could be implemented back when you played.
Well, maybe I'll have more of an interest in those dog days, like I say, in January, February, and March, when I'm really not watching the NBA. I do college basketball, so I'm doing more college basketball as that starts to heat up, in February, and of course March Madness. But anything to bring more excitement and a level of play, if the guys are be more competitive than what I get to see in January, February, and March from the players, would be a tremendous help to the booster. I think a lot of people that have matured, or just say aged, to my level, that they don't watch as much NBA anymore. Not to say it's not popular among the younger kids, but I think some of the older hoop heads now, we don't start turning back into the playoffs. So maybe this will be a playoff type format that will start getting us more interested.
Interesting. Well, Scott, I do appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you
man,
very much.
for sure. Thank you.
And,
let me know what you think.
fire.
Yeah, let me know what you think. We're
Look
trying to raise a little money for the domestic violence centers in North Carolina and Phoenix.